Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the podcast Art of Progress, brought to you by the ABCD project in collaboration with the University of American College Skopje. I am Miloshevski, your host for this evening. And in the previous episodes, we tried to cover the deep tech through the corporate part of the world. And in this last episode, we'll try to cover the same part just with a representative from the government of North Macedonia. With me today, I have Johannes Heidecker. Johannes, hello, and thank you for accepting the invitation to join this podcast. How are you feeling?
Fine, thank you. First time here, enjoy to be with university and young people.
Thank you very much. This is just a short gift from the university to you. I hope you will like it. There is some materials for the if some of your grandchildren want to study.
Okay, I will give it to my grandson.
Yes. So. And there is also a voucher for studying here.
Okay.
So to kick off this podcast, I would like to firstly delve a little bit in the past and ask you who was Johannes as a kid? How did you grow up? Maybe do you have so many idols? Who was Johannes as a kid?
Okay. Well, I guess I was a more or less regular kid. I was born in Bochum in the Ruhr area. Yeah, at a time where there was still coal and lots of dirt, as my mother told me, as kids we used to eat the dirt. Yeah, but okay. And then with 3 years I moved on the Rhine, lived south in the area, not so close but not so far from Frankfurt. Mm-hmm. An area very multicultural, very open. Also carnival for us is very important for the culture, and I have kept this to now. On the other side, as we're Austrian descendants, we have spent a lot of time in Austria, where the farm of the family is. So part of my time I grew up with the cows and the horses and the cats and the dogs. So, and the hard life of the farm and the mountains.
How was growing in the farm? Because everybody that will be watching this podcast, they're growing in a city with, it's a lot of different.
Well, a lot of respect for the hard work, because in summer, even for us kids, it was hard, because of course children would also have to participate in the rural processes to sow, and be it collecting berries or something like that. On the other side, it was great because you have a lot of space. You could disappear nearly the whole day. You would do whatever you could do. So with 12 years, they would say, oh, you have to drive the tractor, because why would waste the tractor for an adult for the tractor? The adult could carry something heavy. The tractor is for the kid, if he's smart enough, or going with the horse carriage, delivering the milk was a big event for us, or whatever else we did, or the manipulation of the lift where to put the hay back in, that was the first technical thing. And if you're big enough to do this, then you were bigger than the others. You're not big enough stronger. For that. No, it needed intelligence, when to pull and when to live off, and to place the things where it was. So
nice. What do you have to say about, let's say, the schooling system? Because you were growing.
First I was growing up in Germany. Schooling system is a little bit different. Schooling system pushes you very much for participating during school, during the hours. And this was 2/3 of the grades in many things. You were always challenged also to challenge the teacher, to ask questions, to bring in ideas, to combine. And then it starts where it's not the normal kid anymore. With 16, I was actually not so good in school before. My mother said, why don't you go to a professional high school? And professional high school is that you learn a profession, but you also still go to school. And she said, you like cooking, why don't you go to a tourism school? And I said, actually, I looked at the program and said, this is what I like. And I switched back to Austria. I went to a professional tourism high school, Klesheim, which is the oldest and most famous in Austria, which was rather tough. You start at 6 in the morning, at 6:30 you have the first study hours. It's a lot of working, a lot of hours, but it really changed my way on seeing the world. And when you start a professional school, you start then someone working, and you find yourself in the kitchen with the dirty pots and pans. You're not doing the big stuff. No, you're really doing the hard work. And that was the first time where I worked together. We called them Yugos at that time, Yugoslav, because they were the kitchen maintenance people and so on. But they were much smarter than you were, because they knew how it worked, and you were new.
Yeah.
And you learned you have to work with them, you have to respect them, you have to learn from them. It's not because you come and make an exam or something and they're just cleaners. No, they knew their shit much better than we did. And you needed to live with them, to respect them, to work for them. And that was for me a very healthy education.
Yes, I'm
if
sure
you
that
learn
it was a good
to
lesson.
Respect the people that early on.
And this is still in high school? Not
This was, I was 16.
Oh
yeah, this was still high school. And in high school, besides that, I quickly found out that cooking, I did all my degrees and exams, yeah, but it was not the thing that I thought before. I discovered being a waiter is actually more for my type of psychology. As a waiter, you learn to treat people. As a waiter, you see to serve, to make a distance. The guy might make 100 times more than you do, yeah, whatever it does, you make him feel comfortable. And when you work as a waiter, that is the nice thing, and we had many hours that we did. Yeah, when you work well, you get a tip, and every evening on the amount of tip, you see how good you were, and how good you were compared to your others. Yes. And this is also a very good education. A second education is that half of your job is in the preparation. If you prepare well, you walk only once. If you don't prepare, you walk twice. If you have 50 guests to serve, it makes a difference if you work 50 or 100 times.
Yes.
Yeah. So this was the second part of base education that I really helped me for life.
Yes, actually in our country, because let's say I have contacts with my generation, let's say 60% of them are working in coffee bars like bartenders and waiters. So I think they will agree with your philosophy about it's really a life lesson.
Yeah, it's really a life lesson, and to start working really from the ground. Whatever you do, be it on the farm, be it in a shop, being in a factory. Yeah. And I also, because we're talking here about digital and startups and so on, it was also my first confrontation with the digital world.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, actually, I went to a store and I saw a nice pocket calculator. You probably have no idea pocket calculators. In our times, it was really great. I still learned with mechanical slide rules in school at the beginning. So, and I came home and said, "Oh, Daddy, I saw this pocket calculator." And my dad said, "Wow, it's so complicated. We'll find something." But my dad, he trusted me. He did not know what I really wanted. It was very expensive. I think it cost 500 euros at that time.
Oh my
so
God.
that was 90.
For a pocket calculator.
For a better one. For really a better one, but still. It was a digital programmable alphanumeric pocket calculator, a famous HP 41. It's still a big thing. And then I learned with it and so on. I still have it as an app on my phone. I still use it today, and I still use it professionally today for some things. But my first really shock was when I was working, we had to work 1 day per week and during summer. When I was working during summer, I had some calculations to do in the lower times, and it took me to calculate 1 month, the monthly results and so on, for about 4 hours. And they hired me back and said, "You did it so well." And with my programmable pocket calculator, it took me 30 minutes. So instead of 4 hours, 30 minutes, that's a huge shock. The same
so
work.
500 euros, good investment.
It was a good investment, not because I was paid by hour. So instead of paid a week, I was only paid a day. But it taught me how important it is to always be in advance and well on technology.
Yes.
Yeah, and to master your digital tools. Yeah. And it was no secret, but for example, my high school exam in math, I wrote in half the allowed time, in accounting in about 70% of the allowed time, and also in university, some of the math intensive exams I wrote in about 50-60% of the allowed time, which shows the advantage of digitalization. At that time it was legal because they considered if you know to do it, then you deserve it.
Yes.
But it really showed me from very, very early on, below 20, how important digitalization is and what it means.
Yes, and you can take the same example, let's say with these new AI tools, you can do the same thing now. The working, let's say, of a marketing specialist, you can do it with, let's say, ChatGPT. Maybe it will not be as good as he does it, but it's still time.
It's important to know the tools.
Yes.
I definitely agree. Maybe not so much on the marketing, but on the tool, definitely.
Yes.
The time to finish the brochure, yes.
Yes, definitely. So after that, you decide to go to university.
Well, after that first thing, I went to the army.
Oh, yes, you had the army in that
which
period. Yes.
was at that time mandatory. And I was in mountain artillery, but I upscaled. I was in HR. And this lesson I learned from there, which I would like to share, I was wondering, we were the administrative unit, but we had 2 fighting batteries, not fighting, there was no war, but still. And the one was even the one with a little bit better staff because it has a more multinational task. But why, I was asking, they have far more disciplinary cases, people that we had to put to prison or penalties or things happening and so on, than the other one. Even so, they had the more qualified staff. And the other one, nearly nothing. And I was wondering, and everything else in the army is the same. They have the same salary, the same dress, the same drills, the same clothes, the same beds, the same food, the same education. Why one unit is so much better than the other? And I found out it's because of management. It was just the commanding officer and the staff sergeant, which in one unit was so much better than the other. That the number of actions that came up to us as HR was so much lower in one unit than the other. And that was for me a shock to see it in your day-to-day operations, how important management and leadership is.
Yes,
and I really have to say, army is always tough and you always hope it never becomes reality. But besides from that, I learned so much in leadership, and this also for me one of the most important lessons in my life, how to treat people and what difference does it make. How much more you can get out of people when you treat them well.
Yes, and what do you have to say about the discipline and the do you think that maybe if they make it once again mandatory for, let's say, boys and young men to do it, let's say, for like 3 or 6 months or maybe even a year, what is your opinion on that? Do you think maybe it will
that's a political question, but I have a clear political opinion on that, but it's not in my current role. I think army is too important to leave it to people who are volunteers, who have strange ideas, who are maybe radicals. I think mandatory service for everyone, and that includes in some sense the ladies, and it doesn't have to be only fighting, there can also be other things, is nation building. It's a sort of education, and it's a sort of control of such a dangerous tool, because you have still people under weapons, to have a democratic control what happens. I personally think that an army sample is the Swiss army, but even fighting armies with high part like Israel or so, still the army cannot do certain things because it's everyday citizens who control what's happening. So I personally think for moral reasons already that is necessary, because if you have professional armies, if you only go, I go in a fitness club and everyone who can read and write and I will send them to Afghanistan, well, the locals, the volunteers, they kicked them out. It didn't work. And if you look at the war currently in Ukraine, you also see that the professionals are not as good as the ones who know where they're fighting to. I mean, unfortunately, some are in the situation that they need to do so, and then luckily, many nations in Europe were in a situation that they don't have to. But I think the system where everyone is somewhat involved is the better. It stops you from doing crazy things because you're a dictator and says, I sent them to Crimea, Ukraine, or wherever. But it's a political issue.
So we don't delve into it.
It becomes far more actual. I mean, we have to admit that currently we are in war in Europe. It's just we are not actively involved, but only passively, but money-wise we are. And the period of peace that we had is an exception. And the change can be very fast. And I think Yugoslavia discovered very dangerously how fast this can go and how important the democratic control of these type of things is.
Yes, I totally agree. I want to ask you, so you finished the army, and you after that decided to go to university, am I correct?
Yeah.
What did you choose and how did you choose what to, because we have a younger audience, so they need to choose, let's say, university. How do you manage to choose?
Okay, for me it was rather clear and easy because in a professional school you already have certain subjects, you already focus, so I knew lots of what was coming, Yeah, so for me, studying business administration was the natural extension, and my teacher said, Johannes, this is what you're good at. Continue on, you're worth going on university. But most of the subjects we already had in school. I had economics at school, I had business administration at school, I had business finance at school, and so on. So for me, it was the business part, at least in the first part, was known things, making more, but nothing new. So for me, this was not. I wanted to specialize in tourism. That was my first intention. After that, I found out that it's not a good idea because the number of tourist people in tourism, where there's a need for people with university education, is rather small.
Yes.
And the professor said, look, we need 12 people a year. Yeah. So I said, okay, doesn't make sense. Let's specialize on something else. Let's discover other things. So I switched specializations, but that I will do business, that was clear for me. I went to University of Economics in Vienna. It's, by the way, very popular in Balkan countries. I think it's the largest university for that in German-speaking countries. Mm-hmm. We were 20,000 students at that time, only in business.
Oh my God!
That includes economics. Yeah.
We are 50 here.
Yeah, right. So we were 3,000 students who started in the same thing. So you had to fight with 3,000 others to get the place in the course. Going to the library was something we would rarely do because you had to organize, you had to work hard. 70% of students would not finish.
Oh my God.
Would not finish all the degrees. That was also.
That's a big percentage.
That is a big percentage. We had some exams, for example, accounting. Yeah, 1 out of 6 succeeded. Yeah, and even for me it was very tough. And I only got a medium degree, and I was always top in school. And I had it 5 years in school, and 5 years in school, God. You really know it. But that's the selection process that goes. So you have to organize. But you have a large choice of specializations. So it's not for everyone. Some people, they're a little bit lost. For some people, it's better they go to smaller units. Fortunately, they exist. If you're that type of fighter, then it's...
what is your opinion on the university shaping your character as a man? Do you think it has some part in that, or
yes and no. Yes, if you want the university to shape you, I think that's the first thing. It's a question of attitude, and some things also what do you do and in the way you interact. So for me, for example, I had a chance. I wanted it. I was selected. I had a chance to make a short-term summer cycle in the US in addition to the rest, which was a complete different way of studying, a very open way, a very supportive way. I never worked in my studies so hard, so much, but had so much fun. Yes. Yeah, you would jump out of bed at 6 in the morning because you didn't want to miss anything.
And you're excited for the...
And I was really excited, and it was really such a nice thing. And that, of course, shapes your character because the way of working is also very different. Yeah, the way helping each other, the way suddenly you had resources. I said library. Yeah, suddenly you go to a library and the lady says, "How can I help you?" And she really would help you. We were not used to that. Yeah, so that was something that shaped my mind. Then sometimes your studies shape your mind because you get confronted with facts or materials or interests or studies that you think this is it. In my time, the book that came out was really the big thing. Now no one probably talks about it. The book was In Search of Excellence, of Peter Waterman. And they described successful companies and said they have really 100% focus on the customer. We're not talking about ESG and all these things and better world today. Said customer first, serve the customer. What the customer wants, this is what you do and you'll succeed. And yes, this has shaped my mind up to today. Yeah, whatever I do, today I was walking in the door and there was someone standing and say hi and said, "Oh, they're customers." And immediately I said, "Okay, now 1 hour I will dedicate to my customers because this is my job. This is what I'm paid for. I'm not doing what I planned in this hour." I said, "I have a customer here and he is preference." This shaped my mind, definitely.
Yes, that's a really good...
And to other stories when we're on the storytelling. After coming from the US, I still had at least a year to study. I joined IESIC, it's the International Student Organizations.
Yes, I wanted to ask you because I was also a member of IESIC, yes.
Yeah, IESIC, strange abbreviation, it's a French abbreviation, it's International Association of Students of Social and Economic Sciences, but in the still French term, because at that time, when it was created in 1948, still French was the base language. 1948, very important year in Europe. On one side, the iron fence fell harder. Yeah, it was a time when Czechoslovakia, for example, turned to communism. On the other side is when the students said, in many places, not only in IESIC, we don't want to continue like the war before. We want to cross the borders. We want to create international organizations. And things which are today completely normal, like Interrail, like Erasmus, and so on. At that time, it was unthinkable. You would go in another country and they speak they speak differently. Yeah, how can you do that? Or you're reading a book in English? Yeah, how come? And this is the idea, and I joined them. It took me some time actually also to get used to the culture. It was not easy, but I had nice projects and I liked what I did. But the international part came a little bit later. First, I mean, not really first, but the big influence I had in a chance for international traineeship. I was selected for a 1-year traineeship in the US. That changed, of course, your complete way, your attitude to work. I met my future wife then there. By the way, 25% of IESICers get married inside the organization.
Yes, I totally agree.
It's another story. I got in contact with new ways of working and so on. That was very interesting. And I switched, before I was more IT, I switched to automotive. But it also changed my attitude towards the world. And then came, and because when I came back, it was 1989. And when I came back, the first holes in the iron fence were made. You have to imagine we lived in a world where we would drive to the border, to Czechoslovakia or to Eastern Germany and watch the border. Crossing the border was very, very complicated. I personally did cross the border on a few occasions, but it needed long preparation. I mean, even making a phone call on the other side would mean that you have to register and wait for hours to get a phone connection. And suddenly you can cross the border freely. That was a real revolution. And parts of my colleagues, they were in the revolution in Prague. I was not there, but we were the first group that went to Berlin East at that time to speak, to talk to the students and so on. I held the first marketing lesson in Berlin East. Really the first that they had in their university time since, 45 or whatsoever. We had the first Romanians coming. I still remember them coming with their backpacks. And they said, you can stay. I had the room. They said, you can stay there. And so I said, Johannes, you don't have to buy food. You cannot imagine in Hungary, you can buy so much food. I said, well, we also have food. You could not imagine that you could buy food for a week or so in one spot. That's not only one tiny thing. And it was really a very exciting time. I nearly lost the whole year. I was not really studying. I was working and dealing with them. But it was a way to to tear down the Berlin Wall. Personally, I took out the stone of the Berlin Wall.
But how did you previously said time management, how did you manage your time doing volunteering in ISEC? Maybe you were working something throughout university, you were studying for university. How did you manage to do all of that?
That was not so difficult as it sounds. First, the hourly quota that you have to be present was 20 hours a week. So as a student, you can easily spend 60 hours doing something. So this is no.
Yes, but you still have studying for the university. You have maybe girlfriend, friends.
Sure.
You have a lot of
things. This was not an issue. Even in school, where we had the 40-hour time schedule presence. I did other things. As a young person, you just do it.
You just do it.
I never really worried about that too much.
You didn't sleep.
You get efficient. Maybe, but me personally, because I had in my school so many things that came back in university, it was a little bit easier for me in the beginning. So I did, in the first 3 semesters, I did what normally you do in 4. So on the second part I had a little bit more time maybe than the others, because the big stuff was out, and and also during my schooling before, so we were really pushed to work efficiently, and maybe because my pocket calculator, my digital science, I wrote my papers, for example, on a computer. That was not normal at that time.
On a computer?
Yeah, and it was not on like you on a personal computer. It was not known at that time on a mainframe system.
Oh
but
my
I
God.
managed how to do it. Yeah, and you could save your text and come back to it the next day or so.
That was a revolution for
that was
time.
yeah. And actually on the storytelling, when I started, I said I want to do some computers because I had done it before a little bit, and I said don't do it in the first part of your studies because you will not be allowed to work on a computer. We don't have computers for that. You'll only have theory. And said okay. And I said, well, we test with 2 classes, 40 students, to train on the first personal computers. And I was trained on the first personal computers that came to the university. Our teachers were still directly trained by IBM. And we had to really fight to get our hour or 2 hours for exercising. But the funny thing is, then the tutor came and said, what are you doing there? And said, well, I'm calculating a budget for an event. And said, you know how to do that in a spreadsheet? Immediately had a job offer.
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
What was your first thought when you saw the computer? Like, were you going crazy, or because it was really something new for, let's say, for humankind?
The first time what I saw, it was a pocket calculator. Before I had my famous pocket calculator, it was the father, let's say an uncle, and I said, when I'm old enough and earn money and I'm rich enough, I will buy myself such a thing. And that was about it. And I said, when I have the means, I will buy one, or I get myself one. I said, then I got my pocket calculator, and that's where the start was. And then I got a home computer at that time. Personal computer was still out of reach for money-wise. And at that time, for example, there was no software. If you wanted to do something with the computer, you would program it yourself.
Oh my God, yes? I didn't know this.
Yeah, there was no software that you could buy. Yeah, the first software I've done, you would maybe buy a newspaper and retype it and copy it, or you would write a book and retype it, or you would create it yourself. But when you retype it, then you start variations. So my first word processor I programmed myself.
Oh my God.
It would work. Certain things I never managed to program. Yeah, but and yes, I also had learned programming. I have to admit it too. But yeah, and buying a computer with software was then far later at the end of my studies. When I wrote my thesis and when I started working in Hewlett-Packard later in my studies and so on, then we had commercial software. But before, no. If you wanted something, you do it yourself. There are several things I did.
I'm in shock right now. I didn't know this fact.
But it's an evolution, and at that time we saw this already so much advanced. When you're talking about AI and say, can you imagine AI tools? And our time said, can you imagine a computer language like BASIC? You just write normal things, if, then, is. Because before it was assembler, you would, add X.
It's going.
It was, so that's why I'm not so much shocked about the new tools, because I have seen these revolutions 3 times.
Yes.
Second generation, now you're, I don't know, 6th generation. I said, yes. Well,
who knows what comes next?
Steps, yeah, and there will be a next thing. Yeah, I see it a little bit different.
Oh my God.
But nevertheless, being in advance is always good.
Yes, definitely. I agree with you. So, after finishing university?
After finishing university, I had worked, as I said, I had a long-term traineeship in the US. So I was not finished university, I already worked. Came back, worked, finished my studies. When I finally had everything over, between working and exams, then I said, okay, I will join my wife. Then I have to look for another job. I started in a small agency for press photography, and I was implementing the computer system there. So that was then my
deep tech
job.
At that.
It was
years.
it was okay. Nothing unusual. I had done things before. I had created an accounting program before for IESIC, for example. I've done marketing programs for Hewlett-Packard and others. It was not so different from what I did before. And then I developed through different stages. I was working in a market information agency. We also worked a lot with data. Today we would say, okay, a little bit data science. At the time of then, I also could finally convince them to change their software approach and show them you can do things in much less time than before. And on it went. And later, did my traineeship, it was with Chrysler Corporation, automotive company. When they came to Europe, they hired me back, and then I stayed there essentially till 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say without changing a lot of things, but never resigning and leaving the company.
Yes, I saw that you had a lot of experiences and in a lot of, let's say, companies, different companies.
Yeah.
So how did you manage the migration
Well,
through the companies?
in the beginning of my career, you're right, I changed. I said I started, after studies, I started in this press agency. I changed to a marketing information company who then closed down. So I had to look for a new job, and then I joined another company who were selling industrial dishwashers, which was very much linked to my tourism experience before. So my jobs were a little bit different. But then I went back to Chrysler, and then I never really changed the company, but I changed inside the company a lot. Yes, I've done a lot of different things. There's a big difference whether you sell vehicles, let's say medium range like Chrysler vehicles, to premium products like Mercedes. It's a difference whether you do cars, whether you do trucks, whether you do buses. Yeah. It's a difference whether you work in sales, which the first time was on production. My last years I spent more in production, but it was still the same company. But yeah, you're growing, you're always challenging yourself, and the same when you change countries. You saw in you can see my CV on LinkedIn, it's public.
Yes.
Yes, since 2004 I've been, let's say, in Serbia, Montenegro at that time, Russia, Czech Republic, Romania, briefly Kenya, Slovenia. Yes, but on the other side you also have a method how to go into something, how to change. It is something when you do it more often, you get the method. I met a colleague actually she was in the army in Belgrade, and she said, it's my 22nd assignment. In the meantime, we have a method. It takes me 2 weeks. I know I have to do that, and if I'm not finished in 2 weeks, then I will not touch it. If it's not unpacked after 2 weeks, I don't need it. If it's not organized till then, I will not start it. You get the method. Yes. And the first method, the first hint is, the first part of my method is the first 100 days, people. You get to know the people that you have to work with. You see that you get known. You see that people can approach you, can see who you are, how to write your name, how you spell your name sometimes.
Yes.
And I have at least 3 Cyrillic versions of my name. Plus 1 Albanian. It's all different from my own one. And to learn about your work environment, you need to learn how your phone works. You need to learn how your computer works. Maybe the software changes, maybe tools change or something like that. It takes 100 days. You occupied for that. After that, you can start working on issues.
Yes, but you also need to know how the people work, because let's say in Romania, maybe there is some work ethic that is totally different, let's say, from North Macedonia or from Montenegro. So
of course.
You need to get used to the work ethics.
That takes longer. After that, to get to know your job, I would say normally it takes 18 months.
18 months.
You need a full year cycle. It doesn't make sense when you start in February before you haven't seen the cycle in December. You don't know anything about the country, because this country at Christmas is different than in summer. So 18 months is about the time that you are really going to the top line on knowing the things that you need to know. And this you have to give the time. Some countries are faster, some countries are slower, some organizations are faster, some organizations are slower. Sometimes you get more help, sometimes you get less help. Depends a little bit, but 18 months is a good time. You should not, someone who says I'm going on assignments for 1 year, normally you can only do something very clearly defined.
Very narrow,
very narrow, not large. I mean, it took me nearly 3 years to come here. There are still universities in this country I haven't seen. There are still companies in this country I haven't seen. But every day you learn more.
What was your motivation for starting to work at the government, and what one person needs to do in order to start working at the government level, let's say as an advisor as you are? I'm not talking about the low level government positions, but
In my case, many times people ask me, how did you get a job at government? I think at least I'm the grandson of someone. And I said, no. When I touched down on the plane here in Skopje, I knew exactly 3 Macedonians. One lady who was in my team back in Slovenia, one guy who was my auditor when I was in Serbia, and one colleague, that I had met. So I did not know anyone here. Why did I got a job here? Actually, I was looking for a job. My company, it was Corona time. They reduced the number of management positions. When you have gray hair at a certain age, they reduce you. The young ones want to get the positions, and the old ones have to leave.
In what position were you at the time of
I was finance director of a factory in Slovenia. And and then I was looking for a job, and I was looking, and I'm part, you might have heard or an idea of development aid or cooperation or something, people who go there. So normally these are people who draw water wells somewhere in the desert or things like that. I'm in the same section, just in the gray hair section. Normally the others are younger. So I knew about this program, I was looking, and then I found the position there in the net. And I said, well, if I look at it, it's 95% of what I did my whole life. There's one small difference. I'm not an economist. I did business science, but that was the only difference where it did not fit. But this is really specific for this function. And essentially, I'm also doing most of the things that I did before. Maybe I'm on the other side of the table, but I'm still dealing with the same question when it goes on foreign investments. Now here I'm dealing with companies who come and say, why should I come? And before it was me, the company, going somewhere, calculating why you should do it. I'm just on the other side, but it's exactly the same questions. And specifically also North Macedonia, foreign investors, a large part is automotive suppliers and passenger car suppliers, and that was my factory experience before.
So everything adds up.
Sometimes I have the feeling if the guy would say, well, why don't you run the factory for 3 days while I'm on vacation? I said, okay, no problem. It's really, some of the companies are really exactly what I did before. So it was a good fit. And then I said, why not? And okay, in the meantime, I'm doing far more also what I did before. There are new sectors that came. It's very varied, it's very interesting. I like it. But of course, this is my case. This is maybe for Vanna. My friend, for example, has a different experience. There might not be the same fit. In my case, it was really the right offering at the right time.
How did you fit in with the, let's say, with the North Macedonian culture, work ethic, everything that's happening with the political side, with the government? How did you manage to grasp all of that at once?
Do I really grasp it? I don't know. In my role, I'm a public servant. I'm a service. I'm paid by the taxpayer. But on the other side, I'm not part of the administration. In that sense. So I have my work ethic. This is what I apply. I gave you the example. There's a customer coming. I deal with the customer. No one stops me from doing that. I have a lot of freedom the way how to do it. Economy, for example, happens everywhere in the country, but not in my office, or at least very little. So I try to be with the customers, with the taxpayers, with the potential clients, and so on. It's my work ethic, at least for me. And I'm not so much dependent on what party A or Minister B or so says. I'm working very much with high officials. We're trying to solve problems. There are many who have a very long experience. There are some of them, they're here for tens of years, and of course they know their thing, and we're connecting the dots and so on. And so, and they also accept my knowledge. But there's a difference between the public servants and the politicians. Politicians, they need to be elected. They work completely different. They have the responsibility. Then they're officials. They have their role. They have administrators, and they're advisors. Advisors are there to think. But I don't carry any responsibility. It's a different role. You have to accept your role.
Yes, the decision maker is some
My role is I say what I think. The other one is free not to listen or not to follow. I have to accept that. It's completely normal. So for me, it's not an issue. Yeah, but it's different. I'm a gray hair guy. Yeah, for those who don't see it in the podcast, for young people it might be different. Yeah, for young people you're in a different situation. Yeah, there you might think, but also for young people it's the question: what would you want to do? And for certain positions, it is a position with the government. If you think your role is in police, then you will be in the state.
Yes.
Yeah, if your role is in the army, if your role is in health, if your role is somewhere else, the most important is you do something that you like to do, and then it doesn't really matter whether the state is your employer or private.
Yeah. Having all this experience with the public sector as well as the private sector, what would you say are the, let's say, pros and cons of both of them? Maybe how do they keep up with themselves?
Well, what I said before, the most important is what are you going to do? And do you like what you're going to do? When you say, I want to become a nurse because this is what I want to do, yeah, then you will probably end up in a state or state-like structure, even if it's not, even a private hospital is very close to the state structure. And it has its advantages and its inconvenience. When you are a nurse or when you're a policeman, it's 7 days, 24 hours, because people die or live or get sick or whatever 24 hours. And the same when you say I'm working in the bank, then you have different things, elements of time, because the banks have normal working times and they're closed on the weekends, at least most of them, but you have to deal with huge amounts of money. I had seen colleagues that, no, I don't want to deal with millions of money.
Yes, you
have to need the nerves to shuffle. Yeah, someone said, oh, I had to pay a bill of 300,000 euros, and said, my guy, you are the big boss. My little entrance accountant with 2 years experience, she shuffles 1 million a week. Yeah, and no one asks her.
Yes.
Yeah, so the pros and cons, they are more dependent on the job that you do, which has some consequences. Yeah, if you're a truck driver, you're all the time on the road.
Yes.
Yeah. If you're an army guy, you will have always to deal with explosives, yeah, and weapons and whatever. And after that, you will say, "Is this what I want?" Yeah. So I would not say it's this or that, and definitely not better or worse. Of course,
it depends on the individual.
It depends on the visual. Of course, there's reason if you're in companies, at least in Western companies, yeah, there's a competition. They say, okay, we need to reduce workforce, we need efficiency, we move this work from here to there, we're closing this center in that country, we're moving to another country, or we just went bankrupt. Yeah, when you're working for the state, you're not going bankrupt. On the other side, the salaries have a different incentives and so on. Yeah, but not in reality. So yes, there are some, but the major inconvenience or convenience of the job is what is inherent to the job. I can say when working as a waiter, I really like my job, but of course waiters work on weekends and Sundays and nights. Yeah.
Yes.
And factory workers normally don't work on Sundays.
So it's apples and bananas, you cannot compare.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I would like to go a little bit in the tech or the deep tech. And my question to you is, how did you manage to incorporate the technology knowledge, let's say, that you had, or the company knowledge that the company had in the working place, in the working ethic?
I mean, for me, again, as I was advanced on the digital side, that was how I got my job as Hewlett-Packard, because I said we want someone who knows it, we want someone who learns, and we had all the tools and all the trainings at that time. Yeah, in other companies they hired me because that we don't have anything, but we hire you to bring it in, so I could more or less do what I want. It was always in my later function, I was always responsible for IT, and always there was an expectation to do something. So it was more on me what I could do. Yeah. Looking back, I would say my bigger error sometimes was I was not fast enough. Yeah, I remember one thing specifically. I said I should have changed the software 1 year earlier, or I should have pushed more on that. Sometimes you just don't have the time, but yes, essentially it depends on you. It depends on you creating a climate that the people adjust to it. It depends on you to train the people to do it, to make them excited about it, yeah, to make them not that they are afraid. Many things that I've learned is from another job that I had before when I was software trainer during my studies. And at that time, it was the first time that people got a computer really on their workplace. Yeah, it's from mechanical typewriter to personal computer. And what I invented there, after I had one terrible training, it was really, the lady was complete upset and complaining all the time, and I was not sleeping, and we were paid on results. If the customers were not happy, we would not get the same result. And I invited and said, I will buy a big bag of candy, and every time someone makes an error, I will give them a candy. I will compensate them for making errors. And this really changed the mind of the people, because now they were saying, oh, I made an error because they wanted the candy. And I said, okay, now let's look and compensate.
Let's make it.
Yeah, because you told me, and let's look at it, let's learn something from it. And we had so much fun with that, and my grades really got up. And I think
nice strategy.
I'm really famous for the candy strategy. I still have candies in my office.
Is this your invention, or did you see it?
No, it's really my invention. Yeah, I can tell you it was November 9th, 1989, when I invented this historical date for other reasons. But really compensate people to try something, to go new ways.
Yes.
And you will, when you do this, and when you listen close, and when you're close to the customer, you will achieve it. And you will see that 90% of the knowledge how it's supposed to be done comes from the people anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, you just have to set the parameters. Yeah,
yes.
They will know. You configure it, you program it, you do. Yeah, but this really helps. And I had in my life, in my teams, in my area of influence, normally only positive experiences. There's very few things that did not work. Some things did not took off maybe the way I hoped. It was just medium, but in many cases, I left something, and in some cases, I came back 10 years later and said, you, it's such an old software, and so terrible, and said, well, why didn't you program a new one? Well, we have no one who did it.
Oh my God.
But we did really nice projects in my life. Yeah, but it's really engaging the people who use it, and really at the user level.
Yes.
And then it doesn't really matter.
Having all this experience throughout, let's say, these revolutions of IT and tech, what do you have to say about today's newest, let's say, AI technology like ChatGPT, or maybe some other of the bots that they have developed to serve them as some kind of AI technology?
Okay, about a year ago, ChatGPT came out. It was the big thing. And I said, okay, I will take time over Christmas and explore it myself, and it's really great for working in the government. But I also, when I do trainings and presentations, I tell the people you have to be careful, because you don't always get correct results. I have one example that I go in teaching. You have 3 questions about the same area. One is the result is perfect from ChatGPT. One says I don't know, even though it's easy to find it, and one is completely invented and wrong. So it's a tool that you need to know how to handle it. So for some things it's great, and for some things it's bullshit, and it's on you to know where it is. Me personally, I prefer using Bing, and only because you find references.
Yes.
Yeah, it delivers it.
That's like GPT-4, I think it uses
exactly,
GPT-4.
Yeah. So you have to be careful what you're doing. But yes, it's a tool. But on the other side, if you ask me, will it change the world till tomorrow? And I also say no. I've seen so many revolutions. In 3 years, we'll talk about something else. And the last 3 revolutions we have not really implemented. Yeah.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Well, for example, I think blockchain still has far more potential than what we're using it. Data science still has far more potential than what we're really using it. Yeah, RPA, robotic process automation, we still have far more things that we can use it. Yeah, even ERP, enterprise resource programs, the big complex softwares for managing schools, airlines, whatever, still has more potential than it has.
Do you think maybe it's a mistake that people are developing all the time new stuff, and they're like just throwing?
No, it's not a mistake. Let them do it. I'm very glad that people develop new things. What is wrong is when people say it's only this and everything else, I don't have to look at it. Yeah, it's not when you say, look, I have a new car that does this, that everything else what the car does, you don't look at it. Yeah. Now we say, oh, battery range is everything. 2 years ago, I said autonomous driving is everything. Yeah, but you will see then many other things. Yeah, you need all of it. But yes, it's great that people develop new things, but we should not only 100% of our focus put on one thing. Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yes, and what can we do about the privacy? Because with ChatGPT, as we can see from the comments and forums and everything that I read, like a lot of people, a big percentage of people is scared about the privacy that it's being disturbed. What is your opinion? Can we somehow, I mean, not we, but let's say the government or I don't know, law systems, can they regulate this technology? Then you respond.
I have an opinion which you will not like. There is a nice number. Europe is the first continent in regulation of AI, and we're talking about 1,000 companies. America is very far behind, but we're talking about 15,000 startup companies in AI at about the same size of population. Actually, Europe is a little bit more. So the first thing before regulating, I would say develop it. Yeah? And regulation is of course necessary, but you have to be careful. And it's the same when you educate a kid. When a kid wants to learn walking, the first thing is the kid needs to learn to get up and to walk. And if you start immediately, don't walk there and don't walk to the stair and don't hit this and don't touch that. And if I always say don't do, the kid will just sit and will not learn to walk. Yeah? And while learning walking, yes, it will fall down 3 times. It needs 3 holes in the head to become an adult. And yes, sometimes it will burn the fingers and fall down the stairs. Yeah? But of course you need to look, but the more important thing is that it learns how to walk. So, and the same is true for any new technology. Now, yes, you have to regulate it, but you can regulate it in different sense. We had this discussion when we met first in the discussion on AI. When you have a knife, you can use it to cut bread for a hungry person, or you can use it to kill your wife. The knife is the same, it's your intention. And with AI, it's the same. The software that you use to make a terrorist attack, that you kill the most innocent people, and the software that you use to avoid female sexual harassment at large parties, a location geo software, is exactly the same software. It is the intention behind that is different. So we need to punish the people for the bad intention and not limit the use of the software. I think this is far more important. If I use your software to steal your money in maybe a smart way, and be it by saying if you were using an Apple device to order an airline ticket and not Android device, so I will charge you €5 more, we should punish the intent, the bad intention, not the use of the software of the data. I think this is for me the better way. I'm completely pro that we say if people abuse the less of knowledge, the dominant position, the market influence, the whatsoever to sneak out people and so on. You just have to compare if you do an airline ticket versus a bus ticket. Bus ticket is straightforward, it's so much money, this will get airline. Oh yeah, but if you wait too long, then it's €5 more, and if you want to reserve your seat, it's still less. And then, you have to regulate the intention to sneak out your money, and not the use of the data.
But how can we regulate the intention? Maybe we can charge companies.
After that, we can discuss how to regulate markets. One of this is strong consumer protection. One of this is that announcing bad habits and saying this is not. After that is having rules for unfair competition or something like that, fairness of the market. Commercial law, at least let's say the Austrian-German, after which many laws here are formed, say the honest businessman as a base principle. That's a very large principle, but it covers a lot. Our education in school was based to be an honest businessman. There are certain things you don't do. Start with teaching this in school.
Yes, and
honest
really young
businessman,
age.
I'm not using my intellectual advantage to sneak out your money. This is maybe the first thing on university what you can do for every one of us. It's not because I'm smarter, that they make you buy something that's not worth it.
Yes.
This is what you can do at the university. It's a spirit.
Yes.
An honest accountant.
Yes.
Yeah, very important for us. Yeah, when you do your accounts, yeah, the cautionary principle. We were taught that with 16. I still have it all my life as finance manager. You never make yourself richer than you are. You can make yourself poorer if necessary. Yeah, some of these principles as moral guidelines. I think doing this also with software as a principle, because our world can become a better world if we do it.
Yes, but I think this needs to be not in university, but this needs to be taught at very young age, and also in the software
things. But I
things
think in university here is the right place, because you have the age to understand it. Yeah, 3-year-old, 6-year-old children, you might do it different. You don't steal the candy from your neighbor. But I think it's important for your clients to say that. And if you wait that the politicians or the bureaucracy, which is 30 years older, comes up with a legal text to regulate artificial intelligence, the first question I ask him, how much experience do we have with that tool? Well, nothing. And then you want to write a law how to do it? I mean, you want to let the people write the law about traffic regulations if they don't have a driver's license or don't know how to drive? No.
It doesn't make sense.
So, do you want the people regulate artificial intelligence who have never programmed it? Come on.
I totally agree.
I mean, who is talking? Yeah, people are talking about something they don't know. Yeah.
Yes.
And I had class like that and said, oh yeah, have you seen this and that? And said, have you used it? No. I said, well, start learning how to use it, and after that we talk about how to regulate it, and not the other way around. I'm far more on the American approach. Let's see it, and then we will see the abuse. Then we will see the bad intention, and then we can hit the bad intention. Yeah?
Yes.
But from the regulation, you know, the 10 commandments, there's one line, don't steal. I think with that we can regulate half of our problems with artificial intelligence.
Yes, I totally agree, because through the software, through the AI, all of them are stealing.
Yeah.
Maybe databases, maybe money from crypto, maybe.
Yeah, you don't steal data from someone. You don't, whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. And after that, you say, look, this is the principle, and it applies. We have not thought about crypto because it didn't exist, but nevertheless, it applies as a principle.
Yes, I totally agree.
People don't like the answer, because people, I think, in Europe, we try to pretend they're dangerous, and you want to regulate in something because we don't want to change. Yeah.
You can know that.
I'm against this. Yeah, because we're in competition. If we don't do it, the Indians will do it, the Chinese will do it. Yes. Come on.
So it is better to be us.
Yeah. If a child learns to walk, it needs to fall down, and it will hurt.
Yes, that's a really good.
Yeah, but you need to do it. If you don't fall down, you will not learn to walk.
You will not learn. Do you somehow incorporate all of this, let's say, not just ChatGPT, but all of the new AI tools into the government working? Because I heard something about the customs that you incorporated
we talked about customs.
Yes, but
custom system is one of them. That means when you have to file your customs declaration electronically, and then the system will say where do I have a risk, which truck do I check, which truck I check randomly, and which truck I probably will not check very randomly, let's say. This is one of the practical applications. There are many more uses. Now you also know the digital use in this country is not as high as in other countries.
Yes, definitely.
Again, in some countries you have people who know what they're talking about, with very high knowledge. I heard the Taiwanese Minister of Information System, the first evening he reprogrammed some firewall because he said, now I can finally change it. So if you have people who know it, they will push more. Yeah, but in digitalization we are lagging behind. Even in the Western Balkans we are lagging behind. Moldova for the moment, for example, is pushing ahead a lot. Estonia is role model. I hope one day we'll have the occasion. It is a chance for a small country, because you can implement things faster than in larger countries.
Yes.
So I still hope.
But do you think maybe young people should be employed in some kind of, let's say, new agencies they will think about? Because a lot of people here are understanding programming and AI and everything. Do you think maybe if they get employed by the government to do some, let's say, making the processes easier in the whole?
I think the people the government employs have more knowledge how to use the tools, and we should encourage them to use the tools. I can say, for example, in my job when I came, I have a very modern set of tools. My tool here in the government, my tool set was more advanced to what I had in the company before.
Yes, in here?
Here. Yeah, because I had the latest standard of Microsoft imaginable. I have Jira, I have Power BI, I have many things. On the other side, I know how to use it, and most of my colleagues don't. So we need to implement training. So we have a weakness on training. And sometimes people who tend to work for the government are not the ones who said, I want to try out new things. Because if they want to try out new things,
Yes,
they go another type of
yes.
companies. I can only encourage all the colleagues to use the tools that they have. I mean, even if you have Word, you can do a lot of things better than just typing. Yeah,
Yes.
there's from macros, from blocks, from something. Even if you have Word version, I don't know, 6, yeah, from 15 years ago, you can do far more on optimization than you think, and it will help your work. I can only encourage people to do so. It's probably the encouragement of people, the training, the integration that is lacking. Yeah,
Yes.
but yes, it will come, but it will come faster if you encourage the people to do so.
Because of time, I have only one question left. And having all this experience and living through the communism and capitalism and migration to all of the countries, let's say, with work in the private and also in the public sector, what would be your advice for the youth, let's say, people that are just getting out of university, let's say 22, 23-year-olds? What would be your advice for them? What should their mindset be? How should they think? What should they do? Maybe start internship, maybe start a business, a small business, maybe go, I don't know, in the government.
Well, I thought about it. There are several things. The first one, the parents will hate.
Why?
Because I'm a big friend of changing, you could say, migration. I will not say emigration, I'm saying circular migration. I think it is very important that you leave your point at that age, latest at that age, to see something else. For me, it was eye-opening to leave Europe. But after that, I came back, and I'm fine with coming back, because I know how the others is. I took the good things, and I tried to avoid the bad ones. I think it is very much important that your world is not limited to, however beautiful it might be, Debar or Kočani or Skopje. Yeah, you have to change. You have to see that there is something different than the world that you are used to. Yeah, culturally or others. So please go, and maybe not only on vacation. Yeah, not only on a tourist spot. After that, find what's good, and you will find out that also at home is not so bad, because family and so on has a value. The second one, specifically for this country, you need to say this less in other countries. Yeah, when you talk about how the people here, someone say, oh, they like to sit or drink rakia and complain. The moment you're pessimistic, you're dead. It is up to you to make it. It is up to you not to say, I complain, but to say, what can I change? It's also up to you to say, what can I change? I would say, what is above me, I cannot change. If my boss is an asshole, or the system is like that, or the weather is bad, I cannot change it. What is on my side, my colleagues, my friends, I can influence them. Some I will influence, some not. What is below me, that means myself and the team I'm responsible for, that's 100% my responsibility. And that is where I definitely need to have very clean ship. I should not allow any bad habits, any bad things, any pessimism and so on. The moment you get negative, you're dead yourself. And this will go on for your life. And what is very important, it is up to you what you make out of it. For you, it might be a startup. For you, it might be to go somewhere. For you, it might become a teacher in the government. A government job. For you, it might become a doctor. For you, it might be an artist. This is up to you. You have to find out. Try it, you will find out. But it's up to you. You can become a good person, you can become a bad person, you become a positive person, you become a successful person. It's you who have to do it. Yeah? Sometimes you need a little bit luck. Yeah?
Yes, definitely.
You cannot avoid the iceberg when you got the ticket on the Titanic. But it is up to you to buy a ticket to go somewhere. And if you don't buy a ticket, you will never go. And most people who took the boat arrived at the other side. It is up to you to do it. That is my advice. Whatever you do something that you like. Yeah, change when you see you don't like it. It's very different for every one of you. But it's up to you.
I really loved this advice, and thank you again for being my guest on this last episode on the podcast. And thank you everybody for watching. This was the last episode of the series of podcasts. I hope you enjoyed it with our representative from the government as the last guest. And if you like to see more of this series, please like and subscribe for more. Thank you.
Thank you.